The families of 2 slain police officers have demanded the harshest punishment for their killers, even suggesting the death penalty. The pair were ambushed while patrolling the streets of Kraaifontein, which recently became a murder capital of the Western Cape. Their death brings to 6 the number of officers killed in the past 2 weeks. We're joined by the program manager of the African Policing Civilian Oversight Forum, Themba Masuku. Mr. Masuku, good evening and thank you so much for your time. How worried are you about these numbers in terms of the police killings that we're seeing in the country?
Good evening, Kathy, and thanks for having me in your show. The killing of police officers, obviously, it's a problem, and it continues to be a problem for a very long time. It undermines a lot of things. It undermines the rule of law. It undermines, the ability of the state to deliver key services to its people. So the killing of police officers is not even about numbers. One death of a police officer is one too many. As a country, I think we need to be outraged when police officers doing their work when they are killed in the manner that the 6 police officers have been killed.
Of course, one of the difficulties that some in the community might raise is that they feel that police in general have been offering very little protection against them in their own communities, and therefore the kind of outrage, the kind of tip-offs that one would expect from community members to lead the fight certainly don't happen at the scale that would be expected.
There's an element of truth in that. I think one of the areas that the police would need to really seriously consider in the fight against police safety, it's around building and cementing good community police relations that are built on trust and mutual understanding. I think that element is it's missing. And it's one of the drivers. When there's no trust between the community and the police, then the relationships are broken. Then you're likely to see escalation of police being killed because the trust is not there. But when police work together with the community, there's likely to be good cooperation that would lead to people even being arrested before they even commit crimes, because then the intelligence is in the community and they're able to give police officers who are able to arrest criminals before they work. But again, I think this is also an issue that police unions in particular have raised consistently. It's around the resources, and it's an issue that the Culture Commission also dealt with, around resources, equitable resources, particularly in poor areas where resources are undermining policing. So you'd see that, for example, where police officers have been killed, they've been less in numbers. The 2 police officers that were on patrol in a very difficult environment, one would have expected that patrols of that nature are conducted by big numbers. So you deploy resources to police officers to ensure that their presence in the community is felt and their safety is also guaranteed.
Of course, some of the cases that we've seen in the last couple of months, one just takes the killing of Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kenya and his murder, and what that revealed about the state of the police system in and of itself, that sometimes you have different forces that are working against each other within policing as a department. How much of that is a problem?
It is a problem because one of the areas that are very important in promoting safety is also about building consciousness within the police, that the occupation that they've chosen, death and murder, is an occupational risk. It is a reality. And the analysis that have been done in research would show that police are more vulnerable during patrols. They're more vulnerable when they're arresting, but they also are vulnerable in the context of in the context of high violent crimes, like robberies. Whenever there's an escalation of robberies, there's escalation of murder just in society, there's a link that one would see this police also being vulnerable. And again, I mean, the issue of police leadership is very important. At the center of any strategy that will succeed in promoting police safety has to do with the leadership to address internal issues, to address the issue of resources, the issue of making sure that the safety strategy is complied with by officers. So the issue of corruption is a problem, because even within the organization, one needs to be able to deal with issues of corruption in a manner that builds trust among police officers themselves.
How then can we create safer environments for the police officers? And I would imagine that the question is also broader than that, because it's not just safer environments for police, but safer environments for South Africans, because if South Africa was safer, then the police would automatically be safer as well.
Absolutely. I think there is a relationship when the context within which police officers is violent. Police officers are more likely also to be vulnerable, because the work that they do of arresting criminals and violent criminals also exposes them to those kind of risks. But directly to your question, what really is important in our view has to do with the police leadership in the manner in which it addresses some of the strategic issues, some of the systemic issues within the organization. Issues of resources, issues of deployment have to be prioritized to make sure that when police officers are deployed, they're properly equipped. Issues of training. People underestimate the importance of training. Police officers need to be constantly trained on a regular basis to make sure that their capability is not diminished. Their capability is constantly enhanced and updated through training. We don't see that happening a lot in the SAPS, and I think it's an area that the police leadership needs to look at. But again, the issue of professionalizing the police, it's also very important. Police officers, they're an embodiment of the state. They represent state power. What that it means is that the way in manner in which they carry themselves out in community is very important. So they should not be seen to be engaged in activities that undermine their very existence and compromises their safety. So the issue of addressing corruption and strengthening internal accountability mechanisms is very important, at least in providing a safe environment for police officers. Because police officers in the system should be officers without any reproach, should be professional officers who are ready to serve and are not engaged in any acts of criminality because that undermines them in return.
Themba Masuku is the program manager at the African Policing Civilian Oversight Forum.